I got a vasectomy from my wife, but she still got pregnant. Ooh. So we spent 2 years together in college and got married the fall after we graduated. Spent 2 years exploring our relationship and finally got settled down and was ready to raise a family. She got off birth control and her libido took off. But it took 3 years for us to get pregnant, but we got a beautiful girl finally. So after a couple of months, my wife got back on birth control and had a hard time with it. Her doctor switched her meds several times, but she had bad side effects with each one. We talked about it and were unsure if we wanted another child, and since it was easier for me to just get a vasectomy reversed later if we decided to have more children, I had the operation. That was 3 years ago. And after coming off birth control, my wife has felt a lot better, and spicy sleep has been worry-free since we can no longer get pregnant. We actually have spicy sleep more now than when we were in college. But then, 3 weeks ago, my wife was late for her period, which isn't that unusual for her. Then I noticed her front airbags were a little tender. And she started what seemed like signs of morning sickness. Now, I know there have been cases of nature reversing vasectomies, so I went to the doctor and had my baby juice count checked, and the verdict was, I'm still sterile, but I didn't tell my wife. My wife finally went to her doctor and confirmed that she was pregnant, so she had me go to the doctor to get tested. I didn't go right away because I was literally sick from the stress of the situation. I had all sorts of sick scenarios going through my head. In the end, I got retested and I took my daughter in and had a DNA test done. I got both test results back today and got violently ill after reading them. Yes, I am sterile, and no, my daughter's not mine. When my wife got home, I showed her my test and she denied any wrongdoing and saying that there was a problem with the test. And I showed her the test from last week, and she broke down crying. I finally got it out of her who she had slept with, and that it only happened once, and the wiener wrapper must have failed. I made her tell me the story 3 times, and each time I asked her if that was the whole truth, and if there was anything else that she needed to tell me, because another lie would mean we were through. She said that that was the only time she had ever done anything like that before. I told her how much this hurt me and asked her how she could do this to our family and if it was worth it. I asked her if she wanted a divorce, and she pleaded with me to forgive her and just put this behind us. I said I couldn't raise someone else's child and asked her if she'd be willing to terminate the pregnancy in order to stay together. So she cried the rest of the night, but when we went to bed, she said she would do whatever it took to save our marriage. I never brought up the DNA test. I will contact a lawyer next week to see what my options are about if I have to pay child support on our first child. If she had come clean about the father of our first child, I could have swallowed my pride and tried to work to forgive her, but she thought she was in the clear and didn't need to confess to anything else. No telling what I'll never know. We have not just an update, but a lawyer update. My lawyer is awesome. She had me bring in a bunch of paperwork, bank statements, and medical and DNA results, and had me tell her my story. Her assistant sat in with us and took notes while my lawyer went through my documents. After I finished, she asked a few questions and spelled out my options. I live in an at-fault state, which is good and bad. Good as in it gives us leverage, bad as in it takes much longer and is much more expensive. In the case of the first child, if my wife agrees to sign the papers, my liability for child support is an easy fix. If she doesn't agree, then a court-ordered DNA test and judgment from the court can remove me without my wife's consent. Either way, I will most likely not have to pay child support. One way is just more expensive than the other. Since my wife has a good job and earns close to what I do, she didn't think the judge would award her any alimony, and all of that plus dividing up property and other things can be negotiated before a judge gets involved. The bad news was due to the holidays. They couldn't have the papers ready before Christmas, but definitely would before the end of the year. She advised me to say nothing until my wife got served. My lawyer gave me a list of things to do before and after Christmas before they served my wife. One thing they did point out was since we were actively trying to have a baby, there was a possibility that my wife didn't know that the child wasn't mine. My wife has an appointment with her OB tomorrow. But we have an update. So I met my sister at my house and we started moving my stuff to her house while the divorce goes through, or at least until my soon-to-be ex-wife leaves and I get possession of the house. We took 4 carloads to her house and came back for the rest. My sister felt it important for her to be there for support and as a witness. I also moved the nanny cam into the living room so it could record everything into the cloud. At about 10:45 a.m., I got a text from the lawyer saying that she had been served. I sent her an email saying that I am at the house when she's ready to talk. A couple of minutes later, I got a text from my wife saying, "Why? Blah, 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 blah." So I resent the first text and waited for her to get home. She sent several texts and voicemails. They don't mention anything about cheating, just how she thought we were working this out, and she thought we would sit down and have a conversation before proceeding with a divorce. She was playing the family card and how this will devastate the child in our families. How she feels betrayed. That was a good one. She was still sharing her location, and it took her 20 minutes before she left work. She then stopped at a nearby Walgreens for a few minutes. The purpose of the stop at Walgreens became clear as a police car pulled in behind her in the driveway. According to the officers, she got the police there because she was afraid that we had pew-pews in the house. I showed the officers my empty pew-pew safe and said that I had removed them to another secure location. We went back to the living room, and I showed my wife the paternity test that I had done that showed her that her daughter was not mine. Her response was denial and disbelief, which appeared genuine. She broke down and cried for about 10 minutes. I told her this was the final straw and why I wanted the divorce. At about that time, the police officers reminded me to keep it civil and made their exit after I told them I was leaving soon to stay at my sister's house. When I asked who the child's father was, she claimed she didn't know. I asked if there were many guys she was sleeping with or if she just didn't know his name. I asked how many times she had cheated on me between pregnancies, to which she said it was just the two of them. So I told her that I had said earlier if she didn't tell the whole truth that I was done. I reminded her that I also told her that I couldn't/wouldn't raise someone else's child and that she had better figure out who the real father was because I wasn't paying child support for someone else's baby. She wanted to know what we were going to tell our daughter, and I said that was up to her because this was her mess and I wasn't taking the blame or cleaning it up for her. I drafted a couple of emails last week, one for our friends and family, with copies of all the test results and reasons why I was asking for divorce, the other for my wife, and copies of the same tests along with what I knew and things that I had told her previously. I had to run it through my lawyer and make a couple of edits before she signed off on it, and I sent copies to all of our friends and relatives when she pulled into the driveway this afternoon. Most of the feedback has been one-sided and very colorful. In the end, I told her that if she had been truthful, we might have been able to work things out, but I couldn't trust a lying serial cheater, and I told her if she had gotten her tubes tied instead of me getting a vasectomy, she might have gotten away with it.
Oh.
I mean, that is technically speaking true.
Guess so.
And you know what's crazy? We started the story with OP being like, okay, let me
Yeah,
do it.
doing the most.
You know?
Like, I understand that your body is being very much affected by birth control, so let me take this one.
Do you
And
think
then this is
that's why he's so like adamant to get revenge or like put
Well,
her
it's
like
not like it's not
get back at her? You know, I mean, right, but do you think that's like, oh, I did this for you? I mean, of course, all the lies and the cheating and all that, but also on top of that, like, I don't know,
That's
like
a
his
good
motives
question.
are like, I understand like he's upset, but his motives are like very aggressive and very insidious.
Yeah.
It could be essentially the nice guy thing.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, I did this for, and yes, he did do that for her, and it is good. But that doesn't mean you can just become this like cruel person.
Yeah.
Like, what did he expect when he's like, psych, I'm not the father. Nobody
Yeah.
wins. Like, no
Yeah.
one's happy. Did he think he was going to get a little happiness out of this?
I think probably. I think he's, lashing out because she lied to him.
Yeah.
And he's upset. And I think hopefully, in the long run, he'll kind of go to therapy and realize, oh, I probably shouldn't have done it like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's hope.
Yeah.
We got a redemption arc here. So Opie said, I told her she needed to get a lawyer so we could move forward and start to heal. And we have an update. We had our second meeting with the lawyers today, and we signed off on almost everything except the house, still waiting for the appraisal to come back and figure out that split. Motions got filed today, and a court-ordered paternity test was scheduled for all three of us. Since soon-to-be ex-wife didn't fight me on everything, we filed a no-fault divorce petition. If everything goes right, I get the house back on February 15th, and the divorce will be final on April 5th. The lawyers did a better job keeping us separated and the conversation between the two of us at a minimum. I was a little worried when she came in, pale with no energy to speak of. I couldn't tell if it was lack of sleep or maybe over-medicated. She just stared out the windows as the lawyers read everything to us before we signed some of the papers. Walking out felt like I had shed a giant weight from around my neck. HR got me signed up for therapy tomorrow. My boss had to put a bottle of champagne on my desk to offer me some time off if I needed it, but I told him I was excited to get back to work. And we have some relevant comments. Critical Bank 5269 says, did she disclose any more info about her infidelity / child's ID, or is she just running through the motions at this point? OP says, she had already told me who the biodad was, but I don't know if I can believe her. Doesn't matter to me at this point. She did say she hasn't reached out to him yet, which makes me think she's deflecting. Not my monkey, not my circus anymore. Equivalent B 886 says, did you know the biodad? Was he part of your friend group? What happened at the first meeting with the lawyers? Opie says, I think I remember meeting him at a time or two, but he was not part of our friend group. First meeting was just a prelim with my lawyer outlining our terms and what we intended to do if she contested to any of our terms. And deleted says, how are you doing? Can you update us? Opie says, my ex got her share of the equity on the house and has already moved into her new apartment, and I move back into it tomorrow. Court-ordered DNA test came back, and the judge has approved the motions to terminate my paternal rights and obligations. The divorce won't be final until April, but for all intents and purposes, I am free. Only contact I have with my ex is messages through my lawyer or meetings at the lawyer's office with her present. I blocked the ex and some of her family and friends. She has said that she wants to sit down and talk at some point, but my lawyer said that it should wait till after the divorce is final. I had dinner with the affair partner's wife again. As we keep each other up to date on our ex-spouses, I almost feel sorry for him. She got him fired and is determined to drag out the divorce and inflict as much pain as possible. Equivalent B 886 says, how did she get the affair partner fired? Was the affair partner an employee of the school district? Opie says, affair partner worked for her family's business. She told her dad and uncle who ran the business what he did. She didn't have to ask twice. They took his laptop, company phone, credit card, and company car the next morning with no notice. All he got was a cardboard box with his personal stuff and was escorted out. All in about 15 minutes. Equivalent B 886 says, you had dinner with her twice. I get the impression that you like her. You could have easily caught up with her over the phone. Sometimes both BS become support systems for each other. It is not uncommon for both BS to really like each other and for more to develop. Or am I reading into this too much? OP responds, comrades in arms to speak. We have been able to fill in the holes of what we know about our spouse's affairs. And we both have a macabre interest in the fate of our exes and their affair partners. All evidence from both sides point to about 6 weeks and them meeting up 3 times. The amount of spicy sleep is hard to say. Update number 2, tormenting my ex-wife's affair partner. So, throughout and after my divorce, I have kept in contact with Sharon, the other betrayed wife, as we had shared details about our ex's affairs and both of us were interested in the consequences of our spouses ended up suffering, and we provided each other moral support. We talk on the phone and usually have dinner once to twice a month to catch up. Last month, Sharon, the betrayed wife, said that one of her friends was getting married and had invited her to the wedding. Her ex, Stan, the affair partner of my wife, was also invited as he was a friend of the groom. Her invitation had a +1, and she pitched me the idea of going with her, both as moral support and as a dig at her ex, Stan. It was a weekend event, and we would share a room with double beds. Strictly platonic. The idea amused me, so I agreed. So we flew in the day before the wedding and had dinner with several of Cheryl's friends. I was introduced as her friend, no mention of our history and the divorce. We didn't run into Stan until right before the ceremony as they escorted us to the bride's side, while Stan was seated on the groom's side. Needless to say, he was less than pleased and kept looking over at us, something Sharon was well aware of. At the reception, we were seated with some of Sharon's friends from the night before, and we picked up where we left off, and everyone was quite engaged. Stan was seated at a table across the room from us, but in a clear view. We danced a bit together and probably drank more than we should. There was a brief confrontation with Stan and Sharon, but her friends diffused it quickly and spirited Sharon away. At the hotel after the reception, we had drinks with 2 other couples, several comments about Stan shooting daggers at us all night, and a few about how cute a couple we made, and questions about if we were serious or not. We laughed it off and said, We were just friends. I had to support Sharon on the way to the room and had my arm around her. On the cramped elevator ride, we were standing quite close. When we got to the room, there was a tense moment, and we kissed. Good judgment lost out to the booze, and we ended up sleeping together. So the next morning, we never spoke much about the elephant in the room, and we rushed out to catch our flight home. We did run into Stan as we were checking out, and he made a snide remark and walked off. Once we were on the plane, we talked about what had happened, that neither of us were sorry, but questioned the wisdom of the timing. We both agreed, and we each needed some time to process what had happened and agreed to have dinner next week and talk about it then. I know neither of us has tried to date since our divorce. I haven't been in the right headspace to even flirt, much less date. I have a session already scheduled with my therapist where I'll bring this up, but we did have a great weekend at the wedding.
Well, there you go,
Wow.
I guess.
Wow.
Wowee.